Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. US President Donald Trump has stated that negotiations over the proposed peace plan for Gaza has been very successful and expects the first phase of the plan to be completed by the end of the week. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu resigns just weeks after his appointment. This also came hours after he unveiled the first names of his government. The French stocks dropped sharply, and as did the euro following news of the resignation. Activists detained by Israeli authorities from the Global Smooth Flotilla continue returning home, with citizens of Spain, Tunisia landing in their home countries after being deported by Israel. The 17-year-old boy and a 43-year-old woman were killed while 14 others were injured in a shooting incident in Alabama's capital, Montgomery. Police have said that multiple individuals pulled out weapons and started firing after the first shots were fired. No arrests have been announced so far, and investigation is still underway. Police are investigating the crime scene in Sydney's Inner West after a man allegedly fired around 50 bullets at passing cars from his property, wounding at least 16 people. The suspect is under custody now, and police have also recovered two rifles from the scene. Two wildfires have destroyed nearly 400 hectares in the north of the French island of Corsica. According to authorities, nearly 180 firefighters, 50 vehicles and 4 aircraft were mobilized to tackle the two blazes. Australia has signed a new defense agreement with Papua New Guinea, its first in more than 70 years, as Canberra seeks to block China from expanding its security presence in the Pacific. Under the Puk Puk Defense Treaty, which is the first signed by Papua New Guinea, Australia and its northern neighbor are obliged to come to each other's aid if attacked. The treaty allows as many as 10,000 Papua New Guineans to serve with the Australian Defence Force under dual arrangements. Rescue operations in Indonesia's tragic school roof collapse reach the final stage now, as the death toll climbs to 49 people. France's Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has resigned, less than a month after his appointment, making him the shortest-lived Prime Minister of France, after right-wing allies indicated that they would withdraw support from his government. Lecornu, a former defense minister, was appointed as the prime minister by President Emmanuel Macron last month. His resignation came hours after he had just named his ministers for his prospective government. This unexpected resignation of Sébastien Lecornu has once again revealed the deepening political crisis in France. Let's listen into what he has said.
Puis j'en suis arrivé à la conclusion vendredi dernier qu'au fond, le Parlement devait toujours avoir le dernier mot, que l'article 49 alinéa 3 de la Constitution était un moyen de contraindre sa majorité dans l'esprit du constituant, notamment de Michel Debré et du général de Gaulle, et que cela ne servait à rien de donner l'impression que les débats n'iraient pas jusqu'au bout. En ce lundi matin, les conditions n'étaient plus remplies pour que je puisse exercer ces fonctions de Premier ministre et permettre au gouvernement d'aller devant l'Assemblée nationale demain.
The resignation of French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has sent shockwaves through the Paris stock market. French markets fell, with the CAC 40 stock index down by 0.8%. A decline in government bond prices pushed up the country's borrowing costs by 0.08 percentage points to 3.59%. French mid-cap stocks have also been hit hard, tumbling by 2.6%. Other European markets are also trading lower, with the broader stocks X 600 down 0.3%, while Germany's DAX also traded weaker. The additional interest rates paid on French debt over benchmark German bonds have reached 0.88 percentage points, close to their highest level since the Eurozone debt crisis more than a decade ago. Uncertainty in the market regarding the probable government and its policies has led to the market decline. Now we move on. In developments from the Russia-Ukraine war, the Ukrainian military has said that it hit a Russian oil terminal in Crimea. The Ukrainian military has also targeted one of Russia's main explosives and factories. This comes as Ukraine earlier targeted power facilities in Belgorod, Russia, leaving more than 40,000 residents without power. Russia has also claimed of neutralizing around 250 drones overnight targeting Russian cities. The front lines at the border remain active as both Russia and Ukraine continue to target key energy infrastructures. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical commentator, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now we see that this war seems to be escalating, and if I recall correctly, Crimea is wanted by both Ukraine and Russia, but both of them seem to be active in that zone. So how will this affect the people's perspective towards Russia and both Ukraine if they're both being targeted by these countries?
Good to be with you. I mean, in that area, the Russians had a big bridge that they constructed because they could not then drop paratroops, etc., into that region unless they could then support them. They then had the logistics to support them. And as we go back in a few years ago, then Vladimir Putin is then holding elections, and people within that region have turned around and said, well, we wish to align with Russia. Now those elections have to be examined into how they were held, or whether the people had no option to do that. But on the other hand, in that area, people speak Russian. The tit for tat is continuing because the Ukrainians, as they have become very adept at using their drone technology. It's all about, and as even President Trump has said, others, it's all about taking out or attacking the economic infrastructure, trying to bring the Russian economy to its knees, so which the oil and energy sector then finances the war. And of course, the other discussion that's gone on, much to President Trump's frustration, where behind people's back, other countries are trading energy with Russia, and of course Russia has its ghost fleet of ships. So all of this is going on because he has constantly said, to stop this war, to bring Russian economy to its knees, you need to stop buying the materials, e.g. gas and oil, that actually fund the war chest that Putin needs to continue this from February 2022. Asuma.
And Mark, now how is this intensifying attacks from both sides? And also last week we kept seeing the drone sightings across Europe. How do you think this is impacting the development of new security measures and defense measures in Europe?
Well, it's impacting it on all sides. I mean, it can be argued that as drones come over the border, like we've seen in Poland, for instance, that they need to be immediately shot down. These are unidentified objects coming from somewhere, maybe that's Russia, wherever, but they need to then be taken out. So that's a mindset that I believe that the Europeans have got to get over in regard to looking at NATO, in regard to strengthening all that. And then other wonderful commentators have stated it's the way that Russia is trying to, by doing this on individual countries, it's testing, but it's also then deflecting the armaments, etc., that NATO would want, and Americans, Europeans would want to then push forward to the Russian front, to Ukraine. We've had a discussion about Tomahawk weapons in that regard as well. When they've got the weaponry to then get so far into Russia, this is seen as then a threat, because as the issue is the last thing we want is escalation, but this potentially incrementally, creep by creep, is then happening because Russia is testing, is pushing, despite its huge losses. Asuma.
Right. Thank you very much, Mark, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, who serves as deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, will travel to North Korea this week. Medvedev will be leading a delegation from the United Russia Party to participate in ceremonial events like that marks the 80th anniversary of North Korea's Workers' Party. The visit comes as the invitation of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of North Korea, which is in fact the party of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The Workers' Party of Korea was established in 1945 and currently acts as the ruling party under Kim Jong-un. The anniversary of its founding is to be celebrated in October 10th. Now we move on. On the sixth day of the U.S. government shutdown, President Donald Trump has said that federal worker layoffs are already happening. He has also blamed the Democrats for the shutdown. Let's listen into what President Donald Trump has said.
Right now, it's all because of the Democrats. The Democrats are causing the loss of a lot of jobs with their, it's a shutdown. It's their shutdown, not our shutdown, it's their shutdown.
The White House had earlier said that the Trump administration will start mass layoffs of federal workers if President Trump decides that the negotiations with the Democrats are not going anywhere. Meanwhile, the Senate is scheduled to reconvene to vote on a bill backed by the Democrats to continue appropriations for the government. Republicans have opposed that version of the appropriations bill, which would include an extension of health care provisions. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt is also scheduled to host a press conference today amid the government shutdown. Now for this discussion, we go back to Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical commentator, joins us live from London. Thank you, Mark, for staying with us. Now it seems like every time President Trump is asked about this situation, he just keeps pushing a previous administration under the bus or Democrats under the bus. So how do you think it's affecting his reputation as well? And how do you think people are seeing him just pushing blame to other party?
Well, when people are pushing blame to other parties, they genuinely feel that the other party is to blame. If my historical research is correct, then this is something like the 35th government lockdown, shutdown in America since 1981. When we go back to the first Trump administration, Trump won the main government shutdown then that lasted for 34 days was about the funding of the wall down south. So Texas, Mexico, which is why that shut down, as he was looking at security. This potentially is looking at what, furloughing 750 to 800,000 government workers. Of course, the FBI, the CIA, air traffic control continue. There may be flight delays, but they continue. But other government departments that are reliant on the American taxpayer will, in fact, will halt until this negotiation is sorted out in regard to the government spending, which Donald Trump wishes to rein in. This actually is about, as you said, Medicare, the Medicare aid. This is fundamentally for the Republicans. They're looking at this whole issue of Obamacare. We have to remember when Nancy Pelosi, when she was Speaker, turned around and said, well, let's just pass the bill and then look what's in the bill afterwards. And in many ways, you and I, we can't quite believe that people may not be reading such important legislation, which they then didn't. But this is always about a grab for power, and we see that fight because the Democrats believe in socialism. They believe in government spending. They believe that they want to look after people in that way. Where I would turn around and say it's controlling, and then going against what the fundamental values of America are, where people individualism can then make their own choices for their own lives instead of government actually doing that. And that then is, on one level, on an ethos, is what President Trump represents. Asuma.
Yes, indeed, it is very appalling to see U.S. change like this, and it's really appalling. And now, Mark, I would like to ask about the fact that President Trump hinted on laying off a lot of government employees. How do you think this this will have the effect on the expertise loss in the government because of this if U.S. lays off a lot of government employees?
That's a very interesting comment to make, because expertise, we always need that. But the issue has been fundamentally, I believe, for President Trump, for the administration, for other Republicans, for the base, is turning around and going, what are the fundamental values of America? And they then feel that some of these government employees are not pro-America. They're not looking at life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and in that traditional sense, in the American dream. They are then reliant on the government to pay their salary and pay for their lifestyle, instead of running their own business and getting things off the ground themselves. But that is also another issue, because it's the concern then over the American economy, which Donald Trump has been rather annoyed in regard to, when the employment figures are then released, and as he's looked back on the Biden administration and then realized that the employment figures that were released saying that the economy is returning and going gangbusters after COVID was profoundly questionable. It's about, I firmly believe, it is about an ideology, and also within the Democrats as well, in regard to the shutdown. They have not been very happy where President Trump, his administration, is taking the deportation of illegal immigrants into America extremely seriously. And we are seeing that played out in the ICE agents just recently with what's happening in Chicago. So all of these issues are coming to the fore, hence why it's about sending the National Guard into cities to then help the local police, the police authorities, then deal with the crime, which they feel is out of control and deliberate, to then overturn what, as I say, what the country actually believes in. This fundamentally, deep down, is an ideological fight. And may I say that ideological fight in other countries around the world is going on right now. Asuma.
Yes, it is affecting other countries as well now. Now, looking at the press secretary, what do you think she will be giving updates? We can only speculate here, but what do you think she will be giving today in the press conference?
Well, you've said the word, which we can only speculate. Remember that dear Caroline Levitt represents the Trump administration, will be giving their viewpoint on what is going on. The reason why Donald Trump has been pushing to get businesses back to America, to get manufacturing back to America, is to then get those billions of dollars spent inside America to look at getting rid of the debt. They have a debt that's completely and utterly out of control, of 37 million, let alone all the other derivative debt. So it goes way beyond that to an escalating figure that we cannot even calculate. That is the concern. and that is the same with other countries, which is their debt, which is spiraling, which is out of control. I believe that maybe Caroline Levitt may make mention to that, but also she will be out there explaining why in their opinion, why the Democrats are responsible for this. Because it is about the spending. It is about resisting what the Trump administration is putting forward here, and maybe that is what Caroline Levitt will be addressing in the press conference. They are not slow to come out of the gate and say it how it is.
Yes,
Asuma.
indeed. With that, I would like to thank Mark Sutherland for joining us and sharing your insights throughout our news as a geopolitical commentator all the way from London. Thank you very much. Now we move on and we stay in Europe. France's mass rape victim, Giselle Pelicot, returns to court on Monday to face one of her convicted attackers, the only man appealing last year's verdict. Her defiant stance last year sparked hope in the fight against sexual violence. Yet in her hometown of Mazan, residents and officials have pushed to move on, with some expressing frustration at the town's link to the case. Advocates say women still fear speaking out, and many rapists remain undetected. Across France, the case did inspire momentum against sexual violence, with reports of increased complaints and high-profile convictions, including that of actor Gerald Depardieu. Still, experts warn that conviction rates have flatlined, police remain understaffed, and rape culture persists. Pelicot's return to court symbolizes her commitment, but many say deeper systematic change is still needed. Now we stay in Europe. British police have started an investigation into a suspected arson attack on a mosque in Peacehaven, England. The incident occurred on Saturday night at around 9:50 p.m. local time, when emergency services were called to the scene. According to Sussex police, the fire caused significant damage to the mosque building and vehicle parked nearby, though no injuries were reported. Authorities have condemned the attack as appalling and reckless. This incident comes just days after a separate deadly attack on a synagogue in Manchester, where 2 people were killed. Counter-terrorism officials are investigating possible extremist motives. Police are appealing for witnesses as investigations into both incidents continue. Now we have a breaking news. Mary Branco, Fred Ramsdale, and Shimon Sakaguchi have been awarded the 2025 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for their groundbreaking discoveries concerning peripheral immune tolerance that prevents the immune system from harming the body. The Nobel Prize laureates identified the immune system security guards, regulatory cells, T cells, thus laying the foundation for a new field of research. The discoveries have also led to the development of potential medical treatments that are now being evaluated in clinical trials. The hope is to be able to treat or cure autoimmune diseases, provide more effective cancer treatments, and prevent serious complications after stem cell transplants. This is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.